There is a feeling many women know, that knot in the stomach that won't go away, that unease that appears for no apparent reason. Everything seems fine on the surface, but inside, something is broken. There's no evidence, no suspicious messages or calls, but there is silence, a void, a gut feeling that no matter how hard you try to ignore it, screams at you in moments of solitude. Infidelity rarely begins with a kiss. It starts much earlier. It starts when he stops looking at you the same way. When his good morning becomes automatic. When the laughter that once was spontaneous now feels like a poorly rehearsed script. It is in those small changes where the soul begins to sense that something is disconnecting. Often a woman doesn't need to find a hidden chat to know something is wrong, because before physical betrayal comes emotional abandonment. And that abandonment is felt. It's like being with someone who is no longer there. It's looking into the eyes of someone you love and realizing you're no longer in them. Like a flower that is still being watered, but has stopped blooming. Carl Jung said people will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own soul. And that's how many men begin to betray. When they can no longer bear their own inner dissatisfaction, they seek in someone else what they don't know how to build within themselves. It's not love they're looking for, it's anesthesia for their emptiness. And you, as a woman, feel it. You notice how he no longer asks about your day, how his responses are short, hollow, how he no longer checks if you got home safe, but still expects you to care for him as always. That emotional asymmetry is the first crack, the first sign that you're giving more than you're receiving. And when you confront him, even with just a look or a gentle question, his attitude shifts. He gets defensive. He tells you you're exaggerating, that you're being paranoid. And that's where the most subtle form of manipulation begins. When your intuition is treated as a problem instead of being heard as a warning sign. You're not crazy, you're waking up. Have you noticed that something in your relationship no longer resonates the way it used to? And it hurts. Of course it does, because you're still betting on love while he's no longer even betting on the truth. Emotional infidelity is a silent betrayal. It's being physically present but emotionally checked out. It's abandonment that leaves no visible marks but empties you from the inside out day by day. And many times they hide it masterfully. They use work stress, I have a lot on my mind, fatigue. But it's not physical exhaustion, it's emotional distance, it's disconnection disguised as routine. It's the mind and heart being elsewhere while the body stays. It's like living with a ghost that still has a name. And you feel it because female intuition doesn't need tangible proof when the soul is already sensing the absence of love. There's something in the energy, in the silences, in the missing gestures. There's no more tenderness, no more intimacy, only a kind of forced companionship that feels colder each day, like a room that once felt like home, but now is just a place to sleep. And there you are, doubting yourself, doubting what you feel, searching for reasons to justify the unjustifiable, wondering if you are the one failing. You're not. What's failing is not your perception. What's failing is the connection that once existed and is now broken. And no one has the right to invalidate what you are feeling so strongly. This is the loneliest stage of a relationship, when there's no visible betrayal yet, but emotional absence already exists. When you're still fighting for something he gave up on long ago. When you cling to memories because the present no longer supports you, you are not alone. You are not wrong for feeling what you feel. You are becoming aware. You are starting to see. And though seeing hurts, the truth is much more freeing than living a lie. Because the truth, no matter how painful, is always kinder than self-deception. A woman who listens to her intuition begins to walk toward her truth. And the truth, however uncomfortable, is always the first step toward freedom. Because no one deserves to be loved halfway. No one deserves to beg for attention, presence, affection, or respect. Trust what you feel, because if something no longer vibrates with love, it probably is no longer love. Infidelity doesn't start with one body on top of another. It starts when he shuts down emotionally and switches to autopilot. When he stays with you, but is no longer truly there. When instead of conversing, he replies. When instead of listening, he nods. When instead of seeing you, he looks at you without really seeing you. And you feel that emotional blackout as if suddenly the lights had gone out in the house where love once lived. Many believe infidelity is the result of a sudden opportunity or a moment of weakness, but the truth is that it's usually a process, a slow internal decay that begins with a silent disconnection, with the emotional decision to stop choosing you every day. It's a slow abandonment, almost imperceptible, that makes no noise but causes deep pain. Carl Jung spoke of the concept of the shadow, all that we deny in ourselves, what we repress and refuse to face. And when a man doesn't take responsibility for his shadow, for his emptiness, his boredom, or frustration, instead of confronting it within himself, he projects it outward. He begins to seek what he feels is missing, without realizing that what he's missing is not another woman, it's himself, because a person who has not met himself will inevitably get lost in others. Infidelity begins when he no longer has the courage to tell you that something is broken, when he prefers to keep playing a role instead of facing the truth, when he stays out of inertia while his soul is already looking for an escape. And the problem isn't just that he pulls away, but that he often tries to keep up appearances. He acts as if everything is fine, but there's no feeling in his gestures. It's like he's living on autopilot with a faded smile and an absent gaze. He starts speaking less, or speaks the same, but without soul. He no longer looks at you the same, no longer shares his thoughts or dreams. His "I love yous" are recycled phrases, and there is no more novelty, no curiosity, no real presence. He answers you while staring at his phone. He listens with part of his ear, but his mind is elsewhere. And you, of course, notice it. You feel like an echo. You're there, but you no longer resonate in him. You notice when he stops laughing with you, when the humor you once shared fades, when spontaneity becomes routine, when you realize you're lonelier with him than when you're truly alone. That is the most painful kind of betrayal, the one you can't see but feel every day. It's the absence of the soul while the body remains. It's the "I'm here" that means nothing. And there comes a point where even physical contact changes. There are no more caresses, or there's sex, but without soul. And that too is a sign, because intimacy isn't just about bodies, it's the purest expression of emotional connection. When that bond is broken, the body reflects it too. He either avoids you physically or acts with a strange intensity that doesn't fit, as if trying to cover up the absence of love with flashes of passion, as if desire were an excuse not to talk about what broke inside. And while all this is happening, you're still there, waiting for the man you love to return, hoping for the version of him that used to be more present, more engaged, more human, but that version is gone because he has already started a journey outward without telling you. And that too is a form of betrayal, leaving without warning, abandoning without goodbye, disappearing without moving. And that journey often starts with small things, conversations with someone who flatters him, harmless exchanges on social media, messages that seem meaningless to you, but they do mean something because they're the beginning of an inner disconnection that starts to show outward. Because when he starts hiding things, he's already stepping out of the relationship. Even if his body still sleeps beside you, every secret is a closed door between you. It's hard to accept, but necessary. Because many women lose years of their lives trying to revive a relationship that already died in their partner's soul. They persist, they try, they justify, they blame themselves, but they don't see that he already decided to leave. He just lacks the courage to say it, because saying it would mean taking responsibility, and many would rather make you feel guilty than face their own emotional cowardice. And this is where self-deception becomes your greatest enemy, because you don't want to see, because it hurts too much to face the quiet abandonment head on, because you still hope he'll change, that he'll come back, But here is the truth. When a man begins to betray, he does it first in his mind and in his energy. His body is just the last part to leave. Betrayal begins in the soul and ends in the bed, and this is the most important thing you need to understand. You are not the cause of his infidelity. It doesn't matter if you weren't perfect. It doesn't matter if you made mistakes. No one has the right to betray your trust just because they don't know how to manage their own frustration. An emotionally mature man speaks, takes responsibility, and faces you with the truth. He doesn't cowardly run into someone else's arms while you're still giving your whole heart to him. Infidelity begins in the soul, because that's where the decision not to be emotionally faithful is first made. Because being faithful is not just about not sleeping with someone else. Being faithful means caring for the bond, being present, choosing you, communicating, and honoring the emotional commitment. And when he stops doing that, the betrayal has already begun, even if there's no other woman yet, even if he still sleeps next to you. True fidelity is seen in intent, not just in the absence of physical evidence. So, if you feel something is broken, it probably has. If you feel alone in the relationship, it may be because he's already emotionally checked out. And the sooner you acknowledge that, the sooner you can decide whether you want to wait around for crumbs or pick up your dignity and choose your peace. Because you weren't born to beg for love, you were born to live it fully. It's not magic. It's not paranoia. It's perception. The body feels it before the mind understands it. And when a man starts to be unfaithful, emotionally or physically, he leaves signs, not because he wants to be caught, but because his energy can no longer sustain the lie. And there are patterns, behaviors that repeat in almost every case, even if the situations differ. And if you observe them clearly, without romanticizing, without justifying, you'll see that it was all there in front of you. Your intuition whispers what your eyes are not yet ready to see. Emotional absence disguised as routine or stress. It all starts when he becomes absent without leaving. He no longer listens, no longer seeks you out, no longer shows interest. His replies become cold or evasive. I've been really tired. I have a lot on my plate. I'm not in the mood. There's always an excuse, but the truth is, his energy is no longer with you. He begins to withdraw. He no longer shares how he feels, no longer tells you about his day, no longer asks how you're feeling. He starts treating you like a housemate instead of a partner. And when you try to get close, you hit an invisible wall. He becomes an emotional ghost hiding behind the routine. The house looks the same, the meals are served, but the soul of the relationship has vanished. Then come the digital secrets and defensive behavior. Where he once left his phone out in the open, now he guards it like a nuclear device. He changes his password, keeps it face down, takes it with him to the bathroom. If you ask something innocent like, "Who messaged you?" his reaction is over the top. "Why do you care? Are you checking on me? You're so jealous." And in that exaggerated defense is the confession. Because when there's nothing to hide, there's no reason to get angry. But when a parallel conversation begins, when a double emotional life is unfolding, the performance starts. He makes you feel invasive for simply following your intuition. He may even accuse you of being insecure, when in reality, he is the one breaking the trust. And that is emotional abuse, when someone twists your feelings just to avoid owning their actions. Changes in sexual intimacy. The bed doesn't lie. It may become cold or, on the contrary, unusually intense. Both extremes are signs. Some men, out of guilt, try to compensate with sudden, almost theatrical sex, as if trying to silence their internal betrayal with passion. Others simply disconnect. They no longer touch you, desire you, or feel you. Even the way he touches changes, mechanical. Without tenderness, without emotional connection, sex becomes a hollow transaction, or a way to maintain appearances, or worse, an act that makes you feel lonelier than ever. Because there is nothing more devastating than being touched without being truly felt. Unnecessary arguments and meaningless conflicts. He starts picking fights over anything, a word, a gesture, a minor forgetfulness. Everything becomes a reason to argue, because he needs an excuse to pull away, because he needs to justify his distance, because if he paints you as the villain, he can convince himself that he has the right to look for something better. This is called projection. He accuses you of what he's doing, blames you for what he doesn't want to admit, turns you into the toxic one, the dramatic one, the one who just doesn't get it. And so while you exhaust yourself trying to keep the peace, he builds a narrative where you're the problem and he's the victim. He may even begin provoking you on purpose just to create conflict, because constant conflict gives him an internal excuse to justify his emotional disconnection. Instead of confronting his betrayal, he prefers to portray you as an unbearable woman. He removes you from his future plans. Where he once talked about traveling together, now he makes plans alone. Where it used to be us, now it's me. He no longer says your name when he speaks of his future, no longer includes you in decisions, no longer sees you in his long-term vision. And you feel it. You see how you slowly fade from his dreams. The shared goals disappear, the common path dissolves, there are no more future conversations, and if you bring it up, he changes the subject, gets annoyed, or avoids it, because in his mind, even if he hasn't said it out loud, you're no longer part of his story. He starts shifting the blame and emotionally manipulating you. This is the cruelest part. He begins to make you feel like you're wrong for being suspicious, like you're imagining things, like you're the one breaking the relationship with your insecurities. He starts distorting your perception. He disarms you with phrases like, "Why do you always think the worst? You can't even trust me a little. You're the one ruining this. You're going crazy." And slowly, your intuition starts to lose its voice. You don't know whether to trust your feelings. You wonder if maybe you're overreacting. You stay silent. You doubt. You wear yourself out. And in that silence, he gains ground, because while you doubt yourself, he continues deeper into his betrayal. And the saddest part is that many women adapt to emotional abuse, hoping it's temporary, hoping he'll go back to who he used to be. But that version of him is gone. Your intuition is your soul's radar. And if something feels different, it probably is. You don't need a photo, a message, or a witness. Because the deepest betrayal isn't seen with the eyes, it's felt in the soul. In a body that no longer vibrates the same. In a sadness that shows up without reason. In laughter that no longer comes naturally. In the empty gaze of a man who once felt like home and now feels like a stranger. If any of these signs are present, don't ignore them. Don't normalize what hurts. Don't justify what dims your light. True fidelity is something you feel, and when it's gone, you feel that too. Because at the end of the day, as Carl Jung said, what you resist persists, and resisting the truth you already know only prolongs your pain. There's a moment in many relationships when you no longer know if you're seeing reality or imagining it. When something deep inside you screams, but everything outside tells you you're overreacting, you're crazy, you're the one ruining things. That moment is the epicenter of emotional manipulation. It's when he's already started to leave, but refuses to admit it. When he's already disconnected, but doesn't want to look like the bad guy. So what does he do? He changes the mirror. He distorts your perception. He plants doubts in your heart so you won't see what, deep down, you already know. And he does it with subtle but deeply damaging phrases like, "You're imagining everything. You always think the worst of me. You're impossible to talk to now. You're overreacting. You're trying to control me." Little by little, what was once intuition becomes anxiety. What was once clarity becomes confusion. And you start apologizing for feeling. You stay quiet to avoid discomfort. You begin hiding your emotions as if they were mistakes. This kind of manipulation has a name: gaslighting. It's a form of emotional abuse where he makes you doubt your own reality. He makes you believe you're being irrational when in truth you're being intuitive. It's a psychological distortion that undermines your self-confidence and dims your inner voice. And the most common way it operates is through avoidance. He avoids the conversation, withdraws, disconnects. And when you confront him, he responds with indifference, sarcasm, or anger. Never with truth, never with vulnerability. Example, you say, "I feel like you're distant." He replies, "There you go again with your drama." You say, "It bothers me how you act around that woman." He answers, "So now I'm not even allowed to talk to anyone?" You say, "I feel lonely." He responds, "You're always complaining." In this way, every time you express your feelings, he turns it into an attack. Every time you try to get closer, he meets you with coldness or mockery. Until you learn to stay silent. Until you get used to indifference as if it were normal. Until you start believing that, yes, maybe you are being too much, but you're not. You're feeling. And that's valid. Because no one should make you feel guilty for having emotions, for asking questions, for seeking clarity. Carl Jung said that no one becomes enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. And that's exactly what this manipulation tries to prevent, that you become aware of the darkness he's creating, that you confront him with truth. That's why he needs you to doubt. That's why he needs you to believe you are the problem. Another common tactic is silent comparison. Suddenly he starts talking about other women, saying someone else understands him better, listens to him without judging. And he doesn't do it to open an honest conversation. He does it to make you feel small, to weaken your self-esteem, to make you believe you're no longer enough. He might even play with your insecurities. You're being too sensitive lately. You've changed. You're not like you used to be. Don't be like that. It was just a joke. And so you start adapting. You start changing to please him, hiding what bothers you, trying harder, shrinking yourself so you won't lose him. And that's when you lose him even more and lose yourself in the process. Because emotional manipulation isn't about resolution, it's about control. It's about getting you to adjust to his discomfort, to excuse his mistakes, to become smaller so he doesn't have to face his own ego. And the most dangerous part is that he often does it with apparent calm. No yelling, no hitting. But there are gestures, silences, attitudes that break you from the inside. And the pain is just as real, or worse, because it becomes invisible to everyone but you. You know something's wrong because you can't speak without being interrupted anymore. You can't cry without feeling guilty. You can't say, "This hurts me," without hearing, "Stop being dramatic." And if someone asked you, "What's going on?" maybe you wouldn't know how to explain it, because there's no big scene, no proof, no clear drama. But there is a daily erosion of your self-worth, a slow collapse of your emotional safety. And the question is, how much longer will you let this continue? You weren't born to doubt yourself. You weren't born to beg for validation. You weren't born to silence your intuition every time someone doesn't know how to love you honestly. If a man can't handle an uncomfortable conversation, he's not ready for a real relationship. If a man needs to manipulate instead of taking responsibility, he's not emotionally mature. If a man turns your clarity into a problem, then he is the problem. Remember this, true love doesn't make you question your worth. True love doesn't silence you, it doesn't shrink you, it doesn't confuse you. If you're in a relationship where what you feel is more doubt than peace, more anxiety than trust, more fear than love, then it's not love. It's emotional dependency fueled by manipulation. Today is the day to reclaim your voice, to trust your perception again, to honor what you feel, even if no one else understands it. Because you do. And that's enough. A conscious woman doesn't need physical proof when her soul has already felt the abandonment, because the soul doesn't lie. It only gets tired of being ignored. There is a point in every painful story where the woman stops waiting, where she no longer looks for explanations, where she no longer needs proof. She simply wakes up. And that awakening hurts. Because it's not just about accepting that he no longer loves you the way he once did. It's accepting that you abandoned yourself too, that you stayed when he had already left, that you defended a bond where you were the only one still present. But that pain, though deep, is sacred, because it marks the beginning of your rebirth. Leaving yourself is not selfishness, it's emotional survival. It's understanding that a relationship where you have to beg for attention, for truth, for respect, is not love, it's dependency. It's fear disguised as hope. And you are not here to live from fear. You are here to learn to look at yourself with the same eyes you once hoped he would see you with. To become the woman who believes she's worthy, without needing to be chosen, to reclaim what you gave unconditionally, your time, your energy, your tenderness, because it's not your fault you loved, it's not your fault you trusted, but it is your responsibility to heal. And to heal, you must let go. Letting go is not hatred, it's not punishment, it's not closing your heart. Letting go is saying, I understand. I no longer need proof. I no longer want to justify the unjustifiable. I choose me. And that, woman, is the most powerful act you can do. Carl Jung said that freedom doesn't come when we change others, but when we stop reacting to their shadow. And that's exactly what you do when you stop asking someone to value you. You are stepping out of their emotional shadow. You are reclaiming your light. The intuition you ignored for so long now becomes your compass. That same intuition he tried to silence, that you yourself silenced, that intuition that always knew, is now your guide. And if you listen to it, it will lead you back to yourself. Because you don't need physical proof. You've already seen his absence, you've already lived his disinterest, you've already felt his indifference. That's enough. Because when the soul feels abandonment, there's no need for more. Now it's time to rebuild, to walk alone again without feeling like you're losing something. Because you're not losing, you're reclaiming. You're reclaiming your power, your dignity, your voice. You're done begging for what you deserve by right, mutual love, clarity, real presence. And yes, there will be days of nostalgia, days when you'll miss the good moments, days when you'll want to believe again. But on those days, remind yourself why you left. Remind yourself how you felt. Remind yourself what you silenced in the name of love. Then breathe and move forward. Because a woman who's been betrayed, if she doesn't break, she transforms. She becomes someone who no longer accepts half-loves, who no longer justifies absences, who no longer needs approval, who no longer waits, a woman who learned to see with her soul, and who no longer fears letting go of someone who already let go of her long ago. And if one day you love again, and you will, it'll be from a different place. From a version of yourself that's no longer afraid to say, this isn't enough. Who knows that peace is worth more than attachment? That self-love should never be sacrificed for someone else's love. So, today, don't cry for the one who didn't know how to care for you. You. Cry for yourself, for what you endured, for what you postponed, for what you deserved and didn't receive. Cry, and then wipe your face and carry on. Because this story is no longer his, it's yours. And you get to decide how it ends. You are not a victim, you are a woman awake. You are not hard to love. He simply wasn't ready to love with the depth that you love. You are not fragile, you are strong for feeling so much and still not hardening. And most of all, you are not alone. There are thousands of women waking up just like you, who are breaking out of self-deception, who are breaking invisible chains, who are learning to listen to themselves, to believe themselves, to rebuild, because it's no longer enough to survive. Today is the time to live in truth, and to live in truth means letting go of who no longer resonates with you. It means closing cycles, even if they still hurt. It means believing in yourself, even when everything around you tells you to doubt. Trust, trust, your intuition. Trust that inner whisper that says, no more. Trust your path, even if it's uncertain, because in the end, every woman who chooses herself finds the most important kind of love, the one that comes from within. And to etch this into your soul, a conscious woman doesn't need to see the betrayal with her eyes when she's already felt it with her soul.